thought I'd give you a quick little background on where I started out. I was one of the few people born in Hollywood, California,
Really?
at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, and went to Hollywood High with school with John Ritter. He and I were friends. Grew up in the older section of town where the people who serviced the industry lived. The mechanics and the film people. I was right down the street from Technicolor Film and 4 blocks from where they filmed I Love Lucy, a little tiny studio that then, kind of my favorite thing, later they filmed Star Trek there. So been around Hollywood, interested in the arts, and in high school I started drawing a lot, got in trouble because I would draw elaborate notes on my notes in school, and I would draw a book with the hand drawing notes in the book, and the teachers would get mad at me, but they didn't realize I have almost photographic memory, so they would bawl me out, and then I'd recite the last half hour of class back to them and said it helps me focus. I was going to go to college, but I got drafted out of college for Vietnam, so I didn't get to finish more than one set of classes. But when I got back, I started doing production work for Capitol Records, which you've all seen, the big cylinder, and then down the street, record company called Dot Records, where Pat Boone used to sing. And so I started at the bottom and started working my way up and doing whatever I could and starting to do work and ads. And I did Randy Newman's first ad as they announced him and a bunch of stuff like that. And got involved and started, since I wasn't at school, I started to read a lot and trade myself on the side. So eventually I have been a creative director, art director, designer, illustrator, done advertising. I've worked for Las Vegas for Siegfried and Roy and worked with their stuff. I've worked on years of disco records, Donna Summers and all that. Done new age soundtracks. I've done movie soundtracks. I've done almost 150 album covers, things that I call them album covers. I know today you don't. They're actually CD covers. But since I started out and they were actually albums, so all kinds of variations of them. You know, I didn't bring 150 because it'd bore you to death and take forever. But illustrations, I found out in the industry a lot of good lessons that they don't teach you in school. So eventually I started teaching at an art institute in LA to help kids that came out of school with degrees and weren't prepared to get a job. And then I found out that a lot of the basics of art, they stopped teaching because new age things got popular, this or that. So I went back and started teaching kids some basic tools, and involved also good editorial advertising techniques. Like one of the techniques we teach people, it's called the billboard. And it's the best way to think about advertising. If you're ever down the road, you're driving down, you see a billboard, right? Okay, how long have you got to see that, you think?
10 seconds.
Usually 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
2 or 3. So the rule of thumb is this. Show them something that gets their attention. 1. Tell them one thing. That's about all I have time for. And if you can, tell them to do something. And a lot of people, when they do advertising, forget to tell you to do something. They show you the neat thing, it's all kind of exciting and new, and they forget you need to make them respond. That's what you're paying all that money to get them to do. So taking that technique into advertising and designs and the movie posters, and then you find out that like every other business, it's not so much art as you expected. I tell young students, if you have a nice round file in the room, 95% of what you do ends up over there because somebody doesn't like it for some reason or another. I worked on a show called Hunter for a while, which was a police document with Fred Dreyer, and I used to do layouts for the ads, and they kept getting rejected. And I was trying to figure out what's going on. I'm doing exactly what they want. Well, I found out later the secretary that looked at him before she showed the boss didn't like yellow. Have you ever tried to do a car explosion without yellow in it? And so things like that, silly little stuff you learn, and you start learning that your job as an illustrator or a designer or anything in the advertising industry is to take a product and present it in a way that's unique. So for example, marketing technique I learned, you take your weakness and make it your strength. So you take, for example, a small little shop in town that sells hardware. It's been there for years, and they open Home Depot next to it. How are they going to compete? Well, what you advertise is you give personal care with people who have been doing it for 30 years, and you have every part, nut and bolt that's ever been done. Now there's some reason for them to come. Because at Home Depot, while they're nice people, they don't have 30 years experience of working with this nut. And you may have an old piece of plumbing or something like that that needs this old part. Well, they had it. I mean, it was astounding what they had, but they never marketed themselves, so I helped them. And then part of it is fun. And so in advertising, there are 3 things that anybody in the world will look at. 3 images. Anybody. Can you guess one of them?
Female body.
Females. Pretty women, men or women around the world will look at. That's number 1. Number 2, little animals, puppies, kittens. Anybody will look at them. And little kids. And so when you start, those are good things. So for example, my son is a dentist, and you know that dentists every 6 months have to send out a card that says, come and get your teeth cleaned. Everyone hates those cards. They don't call, they don't want appointments. He said, Dad, I don't know what to do. I said, I can make you a card that people will want to collect and will call you. And he says, it's physically impossible. I said, you're going to challenge me? You're going to dare me? I'll solve you. And he goes, you can't. I said, I can. He said, you can. And we had this lovely father-son. Oh, I've done more than that for him. I did all his signage. I helped design his shop. But I made this. Can you see that, or I need to bring that closer to you? Okay. These little puppies playing with toothbrushes in their mouth. People collect these cards. They come into the shop and want to take one home with them. They want to know the next one, because the next one was kittens. And I did a whole series. And so every 6 months, what's the card coming? What's going to happen? And it was so successful, I ended up putting out his moving brochure. And they're out in his office, and they go like this. They're just taking. People, yeah, I want to give this to a friend of mine. I want it. That's the point of advertising, is to get something that gets people's attention. And it's even proven that a bad ad that you remember the name is successful. Because when you go into the supermarket, there are 300 brands of stuff, and it's the one you remember the name. So part of this marketing is to make sure you help people remember what's unique about you. Geico Lizard is pretty popular. Do you know that they're the first company that ever advertised with 3 different advertising campaigns? They had the lizard. Do you remember the caveman?
Caveman.
Which a huge hit for a while, and then they try other things. Like now they'll just do something silly, like they've got besides the lizard, what's the latest one they're doing?
It's not memorable.
It's not memorable,
Yeah.
and all they want you to remember is one word, Geico. By the way, you know what Geico stands for? Almost no one does.
Insurance, GE Insurance Company.
You got it. Government Employee Insurance Company. It wasn't open to the public until recently, but it's exploded. So much so that the other one is the duck. Aflac. Ah, but it works. You remember the name, and that's the part of it. So, things I've worked on as a variety to show you is from this. Years back when I started helping Disney out as a freelance artist, they were doing pencil sketches in the publishing division, and they take all the movies and they make books out of them. Well, all I had was a rough pencil, and they were trying to figure out how to turn these out. This I painted on a computer from a rough pencil sketch and took it back to them. They'd never thought about it. They liked it so much, they didn't give me the job. They sent the work to Brazil and France. And but I showed you how to create this technique. And that's the kind of thing you have to learn in the industry. You're disposable. You can't let it destroy you. You can't let it wipe you out. You work on. And then things like I've started here. I found out in Texas you have big walls. So I figured out with my technique, I can take a photograph of your wall and put a painting on it, what it would look like. Now this person wanted a Western, so I did 6 different cowboy layouts. They chose one and then said, but I'm not that happy with just a cowboy. I happen to like, here's the final sketch, I like Sam Elliott.
Okay.
So that's a pretty close look of Sam Elliott on purpose. Not so much that I can get in trouble. But then it is now, that was the rough idea, there's the finish, 4 by 6 foot painting in the house. So I'm...
Did you computer generate the painting?
No. Although what I did do is, because it's less expensive for the client, when I was 2/3 of the way through, I had it photographed, put it in the computer, finished everything up, and then sent the digital file out. And it's an experiment I'm working with. It's actually digital canvas that you can put on like wallpaper.
Wow.
So I'm going to talk to some very high-end design places here, because I've seen some of the paintings they sell. Ugh, they're not that good. So I thought I could come in and either offer you prints of something I've already done or do a design piece for you, but I could photograph your house or your office or whatever and show you before you paid the money what it would look like. So I can mix my design skills with my marketing skills. And then things like this. I did this book on the life of Christ. So it's all illustrated. I always thought there should be a good one.
Yeah.
And they often don't spend the money, so I wanted the money. I also wanted a few images that you've never seen. For example, that's a 13-year-old girl, Mary. She's actually 13.
Yeah.
But she was a model, and then what I always wanted, I wanted to have real expressions. But honestly, I'm a dad. I wanted to see Joseph playing with Jesus.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I wanted to see that it's alive, and as a young boy, not just a baby in a manger.
Yeah.
And then, because I know trades, I wanted a photograph drawing of him learning how to be a carpenter. And then I had this rewritten like the billboard technique. Each of these are one story about his life, but they're with a headline you've never heard before. So, for example, Mary, who would have imagined? And you think, imagine what? And it says the God of the universe would come and be born of a poor girl. It reparaphrases the story in contemporary, so you can think about who he was in his message, not which church you've gone to or what you've heard or what things, and then the Bible verses below it, but it's written in our contemporary. And just, I'll take a second. Here's what got me turned on. Here's the one about the creation of the world. And it says this: before the beginning, they were always together, celebrating life in a community of love and light far greater than anything mere mortals could ever conceive or imagine. One day their joy erupted into the darkness, into the void of chaos, with a proclamation of profound consequence. Let there be light, and there was. I wanted people, and I've had people just leave it on the coffee table and say, I never thought that way. I never thought about the love of God personally. And that's what I wanted. And like when I'm laying out painting, I just do a quick little pre-sketch. This is the way, if I'm doing an ad, I do little pre-sketches for it. So everything is in steps. And that's what I've learned in design or advertising. Things succeed if you take simple steps. When I work with young artists that are getting started, one of the things I teach them is have production notes on the wall. Simple little sheet of paper with your goal. I want to meet more people. Okay, that's your goal. I want you to write 3 or 4 steps of how you're going to do that underneath that. And then I want you to tape it on the wall. We used to design a movie or a TV show. We had all these drawings on the wall. Put it on the wall. Look at it every day. And then ask yourself, am I doing it? Well, you know, I love that excuse, you know. I said, okay, then write under it. Well, you know, I've been a jerk. Be honest with it. If you fail, that's the one you learn the best. This is what gets me excited. Write, what did you learn in failing? I made too big a goal. I didn't do the steps. I didn't try. I used to counsel people how to get work, and I told them, they said, I haven't been able to find any jobs and not do the neat things you do. And I said, you know how much junky work I've done? Well, you've got awards and you've done neat things. I said, yeah, but for every neat, exciting one, there's 100 that aren't that fun. So I said, here's how you get a job. 8 hours a day, every day, your job is to look for work. What? Yeah. And you're going to bring me notes of what you've done. So in the morning, you're going to start calling people from 8 till 11. Well, they'll see me in the morning. Then call in the afternoon and go see them in the morning, half and half. And you start with a circle 5 miles from your house, and you contact every single person in the phone book that has the potential. And you visit and you learn. And then I'm going to give you the 2 tips. When you're done, you ask them the following question. You're always polite. Always. If they say no, you say, thank you so much for seeing me. But do you know anybody in the area that I might ask that might need help? Question 1. Question 2. Would you mind if I said that you recommended me? That opens doors like nothing else before. Then keep a journal. They hated me, I'm not going to go back. It was a possibility. Go contact them again in a couple months. They recommended me to somebody. Do that quickly. But always polite and learn. And if nothing in 5 miles, you go to 10 miles. Nothing in 10 miles, you go to 15. Anybody I've ever worked with out of work, they've gotten a job. And then they said, well, it's not the best job. I said, too bad. It's a start. And the guy said, well, I only got 20 hours a week. I said, fantastic. He goes, what do you mean fantastic? I said, now you get paid and you still have 20 hours a week to look for work. It's the same thing with creative processes. Kids come out of school and they say, oh, well, you know, it's not fair, you know. It's like I had a print company and they wanted me to do a brochure for them. And they wanted presses and not that neat of stuff. And now, I think it's pretty cool the way I designed it. It's kind of neat in colors and it's not what you normally see. But I said, people get stuff from print shops all day long. They're bored. I'm going to make you have something that they'll want to keep. Now, printing is done in 4 colors. black, yellow, magenta, and sienna blue. And they mixed those 4 colors. So I did this cover. The colors right there as her eye. This won the national award for the best promotion piece in the United States.
Wow.
They ended up making posters. I have a statue of Ben Franklin because of it.
Yeah.
They made posters. Everybody remembers them in town. They say, oh, you're the ones. Where's printing in that? That's their name. This is what people remember. And that's the trick again about doing it. But it takes sometimes people being educated. I don't trust you. You know, I'm scared. Let's do the normal. And it does wild things, like this little thing for a TV show. And they didn't give me any art. It was all about rescuing animals. So I took my golden retriever and soaked him. And I took my son and soaked him. And I photographed them. And then I went and got and put and painted it all together with clouds and smoke and the firemen and all. None of that was there. And so you can do things like that. And then like if I'm teaching, I teach people how color works. And most people don't know how color works. So I created this. And it's very simple. You have 3 primary colors, blue, red, and yellow. Those are the 3 primary colors. If you mix blue and red, you get purple. If you mix red and yellow, you get orange. And if you mix yellow, you get... But the middle step, if you mix this with this, you get that step. So you can go backwards. So on 3 colors, I can make all those. But then if I mix the color opposite on the color wheel, I can gray the tone down and deafen it. I can make it grayer and less intense without ever using black. So on this, if I had those 3 colors, and you're in my class, I can make about 60 colors from those 3. But in doing that, now you know the way color works. You don't buy 60 tubes of color and I'm not sure where to go and I need to spend more money. Let me tell you how it works. And then if you want a special color, buy it. But you can work here fast. So that's another tool I use. And then a tool I...
Still teach that in elementary school.
Then this is a principle set that I give beginning students. You can create anything with 3 kinds of lines. A straight line, a C, or an S. Everybody can do those. Now, the C can be flat C or curly C. This can be a very S or a flattish S. In nature, what do you think an S you might see that's an S?
Snake.
Snake? Good. That's another thing if you looked out here and it was wet and you saw a little river, classic S. And what we tend to do as people when we draw them, being a teacher, we draw like this. And it doesn't look very good. But if you went from this point to that point, what kind of line would that be? Just from there to there. Slight curve, right? Just a slight. Now all of a sudden you're just drawing from point to point. You're thinking of geometric shapes and you start getting accurate. Then I've done things for... Oh, I'll show that next. Then I've done things for...
Vector art instead of raster.
Yes, and I can work both ways, actually. There's programs where they do vector art, which is all points, geometric points, and you can, the nice thing about vector art is I can do it this big and blow it up 50 feet because it's a geometric formula. It's just the distance between dots. Or pixels, the way photographs are done, have a limit. This is done for an organization that helps kids all over the world. So I've worked in Africa, Ghana, I've worked in Haiti, helped build an orphanage, I've worked in Mexico. So I try to take some of my skills, which is what I recommend for you, and I know you guys are so good about doing. Take your skills and give back. And doing that, I did it with my kids, and now they all do it, grown up. In fact, my son, the proudest thing I ever did for him, I mean, he just made me, as a dad, he had just gotten married, and he was looking for work. He's an engineer, and he's struggling. They finally get him a job. He's interviewing. The guy says, okay, we're going to hire you. And my son looked at him, he said, that's great. He said, start Monday. He said, good, but the following Monday, I need a week off. And the guy went, you do what? And he goes, I've given my word to go down and help build the orphanage. I go every year at this time, I've given my word. The guy says, well, obviously you won't do it because you've got a new job. And he goes, but I gave my word. And he goes, well, you just have to break it. I mean, come on, this is your job. And he said, sir, my dad taught me, you give your word, it's my word. So he stood up and the guy goes, I can't believe it. Well, I can't give you a job. He says, I understand. And he had just gotten married. And he tells me, he turned around and he goes, what am I going to tell my wife? And he walked out of the office, and you know those big, huge bullpens, like 60 people working, and he's walking across, he gets halfway across, and the guy yells out to him, John, come on, rethink it. It's just an orphanage. And he went, no, sir, I can't. And he goes, oh, come on. He goes, no. And he walked to the final door, and he gets the door half open, and the guy yells back, John, one last chance. He goes, sir, I can't. I gave my word. And the guy walked, I said, wait a minute. He came up to him and he said, give me your hand. He goes, what? He goes, I need a man of character. I want you. You're hired. And you've got the week off. That's the kind of thing that doing this, taking your skills, whatever they are, and working with people. I got some other stuff to show you. It's kind of fun. I worked on Steve McQueen's second to last movie, Tom Horn, and did the sketches for it. And then at the last, they changed their mind, didn't want paintings, they wanted a bad photograph, but that's what happens. And then this one you probably have never seen, but this is from Star Wars. This is the way we used to print things before the digital age, and you printed in the 4 colors. So everything you printed, you got a color key. There's the plate that will be the yellow, and then you show this is the magenta, slightly pinkish red goes on it, and then the blue plate, and it looks okay, and then the red plate. And then when this is all done, if you looked at this closely, you'll see there's notes written on here. They came back from Lucas's company, fix that, change that, I don't like that. And so everything we did, this happened 2 or 3 times. Posters, whatever, everything got changed. So that's kind of, this is kind of history now, but this is the way I started out. It's just like all my layouts originally were done with pencil and pen and markers, and now it's all computer stuff. So I've worked both ways, and the young kids call me a dinosaur because I actually worked on the last couple packages for Elvis and did a John Denver tour, and we did packaging for him. And then I've just got a collection of, thank you, just kinds of stuff I've done for companies and records, album covers, promotional campaigns, Matrix guys, young guys with no Matrix, worked on Superman, worked on Indiana Jones, worked on the TV show Conan. And it's so fun. We were down in Mexico shooting, and Arnold Schwarzenegger came, and he wouldn't stand next to this actor. This guy's 6'6", Arnold's like 5'10" and a half.
Yeah.
This guy made Arnold look like a little puppy. And he actually later became famous for the movie Gladiator. He's one of the big gladiators in it. But here's a TV show. This is Chuck Norris, Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
So just all kinds of campaigns. And then you can see here, this is the painting I did that they wanted. They called me back Thursday night, said we changed our mind, have it redone by Friday, and get it in New York Saturday morning to print. And I went, it's going to take me half a day to paint it. This is the first time I had it photographed and painted, the rest of it digitally, and sent the digital file to make it in time. So there's just samples here. I don't know if you get to see them, Chris, but they're just all kinds of things, from movie posters to TV shows to ads. These are layouts for a church's website. Just a little kind of everything. That when I travel, I do quick little sketches, watercolor real fast just to remember. And then that card that you saw you liked, then eventually we did a little brochure. And they just, that's why the work is worth it, to find out the ideas of what's going on and what people relate to. And then every industry is different. So you're working and say, well, we've done that this way. Well, it's changing. Every age changes a little bit, time changes a little bit, and if you're going to be selling your services, whatever they are, we all need to stay relevant and understand our market. And then from there, when I teach, I would start you out like this. Instead of trying, the average person goes for detail first. And there's a rule of thumb. I use the word, say the word save like a snake would be. Save. And I have kids write it out. It's S-S-A-V-E. Simplify, get the shapes right, see the shadows, always measure everything, angles and directions, get the values, light to dark right, and the edges when things turn. You fix those 6 things, you can fix almost any painting or piece of art. But like her, is there much detail in that? Almost nothing. You can see her attitude. I've got everything positioned correctly. I've got the things. I can now put more detail on it. But what I used to make students do, and for Disney and DreamWorks too, I'd take them outside and have somebody they knew go 100 yards away and say, get several people. Tell me when you see your friend. Oh, there they are. I said, they're like 95 feet away. Yeah, I know they're my friend. Can you see their eyes? Well, can you see their eyebrows? Can you see their fingertip? How come you know them? Their shape. The brain recognizes shape first. you see the shapes here. And then measuring the distance between her eyes are right. The average person has the distance between their eyes as one other eye. So they're basic proportions and things like that. And so in teaching or in design stuff, you use these tools. From there, I might do a more finished piece. And then there's the other thing in teaching or in design business, there are styles. There's not one right thing. When I used to start out, they say, well, this is the right answer. And I found out, no, it's not. It's got to work for the client. So there's that style I can do. And then I can paint in the computer so it almost looks like a photograph. Or somebody says, well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted something a little bit of fantasy, but I also wanted photographic, but I wanted a little fun and different. Okay, how about that? And, you know, I mean,
Now,
it took
is
me,
that computer generator, or is that your art, your painting?
it's digitally painted in Photoshop.
Okay.
I often,
Yeah, I've got the
He's
same
got
software.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
I could do that.
see, you can. And that's what I teach people. You can do it if you want to spend the time. It's like you know,
There is a learning curve.
yeah, I used to do artwork for the Lakers. And Magic Johnson was an amazing basketball player. But when I was working for him, he was the first guy there every day. He shot so many baskets it blew me away. And he was the last guy at night still shooting. You know that Michael Jordan, as a young man, they said he'd never play good basketball? But he practiced and practiced. So any skill, any artwork, any design always takes investment of you. And then different subject matter. Like for here,
You're from India, or Afghanistan,
yeah, well, she's actually Navajo.
Navajo, okay.
But, you know, I wanted that ancient woman who had suffered a lot, but I wanted to have some energy to it. And then when I'm starting artists out, I start them, that's a simple way to do it. But everything's there, isn't it? There's no color yet. 200 years ago, this is where they started all paintings. And most of the time, they honestly didn't use that much color because they had to make their own color. So a lot of the paintings that are old, they were brownish like that with a little tiny bit of color. There's a very famous European artist, and Zorn, Z-O-R-N, look it up sometime. He painted with 4 colors. Black, white, red, and yellow. He used black for his blues. Amazing stuff that he painted. Really beautiful. Now, after he died, to be honest, because I just found this out recently, in his studio they did find a few other colors. So occasionally when he wanted an accent thing, he would cheat. But basically he did that. And this, everything is there. I can come back over that with either washes, which is our very thin glazes of color, or I can paint thick color, I can mix it whatever. But if you can't do that, why go any further? Same thing with an ad campaign or a brochure if I design it for you. If it's not meeting the need, if it can't sell your point, if it can't help you, stop. And that's where, again, the thing on the wall, you look at it, you make your goals, and as we saw before, this is a different style, kind of abstract, really kind of modern. So all this to say, that's kind of it. I have more of the same kind of thing. Oh, okay.
Just, he's so good. I mean, just when you watch him do it, it'll blow you away.
Okay, we'll do a real fast one. I'll show you the principle. Yeah, let's see if we have time. I'll show you the principle. The first principle that we teach, get out of here, I need the paper, excuse me. I'm sorry, be nice, I apologize, I'm rushing you. Ladies, be good. The first principle is like I showed you here. Let's say you have a circle, right? That's just a circle. How do I make that look like a ball? I use the principles of light. First, there's a light source coming down from here. If there is, because it's round, the closer that top is to the light, the brighter it'll be. But it'll have a shadow here on this side. Because that side isn't getting light. Now, it's starting to look like a ball. But if I want it on a table, that light has to have an effect. That light from up here is going to throw a shadow off that ball. Like that. But another thing is going to happen. The light's going to come down and hit this table and bounce back up very lightly here. So there'll be, if you'll notice on here, it will be a little lighter down there because that reflected light's coming up and hitting it. And so there are 6 forms of way light works. There's the light, the halftone, which is something turning away. It's half light, half shadow. Shadow. Then there's reflected light. Then there's cast shadows. And then there's what's called the highlight. You've always seen in a picture or a photograph, there's that one really bright spot on somebody. That's exactly 90 degrees to the light source. Now, if you have a rounded nose, there's only going to be that little tiny spot somewhere, or a cheek or something like that, highlight. So if you did that, now if we're doing a piece of work in a hurry, and you're sitting with me and saying, I need something, I'd say, okay, what kind of thing you're thinking about? Well, I was kind of thinking of a Frenchman who's a little bit scared. I said, really? A scared Frenchman? Okay. It's going to be a little harder here working sideways. How long have I got to do this? Well, you have to give me an idea in a minute or two. I mean, you're an artist after all. Oh, really? Pierre, huh? Okay, let's see. Well, let's see. I've only got a minute or two, right? Yes, that's it. Come on, you're an artist. Move. Get faster drawing. I mean, what's the matter with you? Can't you do something in a hurry? Well,
You ever do caricatures?
actually, I'm not that good at it. It's a real art form.
Most of them never look like me.
And see, he's sad. We're going to make him a little sad. So, he's looking over here a little depressed. He's lost his love. And needs a little bit of hair, a nicer eye. I know, I've only got 20 seconds left, Pierre. I'm trying. I'm working, Pierre, I know.
We were late starters.
And then you have your little beret, because you're a Frenchman. And I'm also drawing sideways, which is a little harder to do. And then he has a scarf. Of course. You know, and then you'd say, okay, where's he standing? Well, I don't know. I'm not French. I know where he is. He's out on the street, and have a little tear, because in the back, we know what that is, right? Eiffel Tower in the back. And for fun, we'll put a bird or two. Now, if I'm in a meeting with you, this is about all I need to talk an idea over. I would probably actually be drawing on it so I'm not sideways and backwards, but we can really start discussing things, and I can make him nasty or mean or whatever, but now you're seeing. And you're saying responding to it, because people often say, I want this, but when they see it, they don't. And so that's why simple sketches work. Even when I taught painting, you saw those first little sketches I did. I make people do 3 little tiny paintings of what they want to paint differently, and then say which one works for you and why. And then when they do the big one, I make them stick the little one up here. And about an hour into the class, they're screwing things up. And I go, why is it that you like that and you took it away? Well, I'm just asking you like that and you're not doing it. How come? Well, why do you make me do that? Because I'm your teacher. I'm trying to help you see. So that's the kind of stuff I've done, folks. And any questions? Or
I just want to say, Murray's new to the area. He's available as a graphic artist for your businesses and for your personal portraits. And he has classes at his house on how to do what he's showing us. And I just wanted to let people know that you are available for that.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I think everybody should consider that.
Krista Hartman, we want, because she's starting to do artwork too, you know, she's getting her vineyard,
Yeah.
and she was doing her first painting.
The other thing, too, for you guys, if you know a business person or somebody that's struggling a little bit and wants to do it, I often have coffee with an hour for somebody. Just give them a little bit of marketing background. Doesn't charge, just I want to pass on what I know. And I spent a lot of years, and when I started out, it was like everything was a secret. They were too protective. And I think, like what you're doing, we need to pass on what we know. That's one of the great gifts of life, is somebody to go, I got it. Thank you so much.
Did you know
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ernie Torino